But often it's not just time. You know, we might blame, I don't know, health professionals for our conditions or our situations. We might blame past experiences for us being stuck. We might blame our boss for being a certain way, any adjective you want to put there. There's so much advice out there about things that can support well-being, but people are apprehensive to try it. It's like meditation, you know, if you mention meditation, people roll their eyes and think, you know, and without even trying it, you know, when we are asked to look at something that we're not ready or prepared to, we get angry and triggered. And then that's a stupid idea. How ridiculous. And we want to pull that apart because we don't want to take responsibility. We don't want, if we feel like we're in a really bad place, we don't want to feel responsible for that. We don't want to feel like we did that to ourselves. And I think you get into patterns of a priority. So karate was a priority, and it has to be a priority again because I'm training for, but on a weekly basis, on every time, does it mean, you know, does it mean that I can't miss one and prioritize something else one day? Well, if an emergency comes, I would. So, so it's really brought that into my awareness. That's so topical. But often it's not just time. You know, we might blame, I don't know, health professionals for our conditions or our situations. We might blame past experiences for us being stuck. We might blame our boss for being a certain way, any adjective you want to put there.
Our parents, all of it. Like, there's so many people we can blame from our past about why we're not changing now. But you know, it's how you choose to respond to that behavior. Now, when you're in the depths of that trauma and the depths of that depression, I understand what it's like to not be able to move. When we feel like we don't have a choice, when we feel like there is no light. But there really is just, you know, even if you take that tiny little step, you can actually transform so quickly. And when you take that responsibility back, you know, we can say that the reason you're in that dark hole is because of these people. But they're not the ones that are keeping you there now. You're the one keeping yourself there. And you have, you know, they're not, you know, you're the one keeping yourself stuck. And you have that power within you to choose now not to let the effects of people or the past hinder your growth into the future.
Yeah. It's just like making a choice to, it's like when we've been through something traumatic, I'm not saying that we don't need to process that, but what can often happen is we can get stuck in it. We can just keep going over and over and over it. And that's a choice. You know, it's like we've said before, if somebody's hurt you, sometimes it can be a situation, but if somebody's hurt you, they probably don't, it's not on their radar. They're not thinking about it. And the only person that keeps it alive is you, by choosing to go over and over it. And that is where you have power. You don't have power to change what they did to you, but you do have a choice. You could take responsibility for the fact that you're torturing yourself by thinking about it so much, and make a choice to forgive yourself and them and move on, or not.
That's it. We can choose to stay in victimhood.
Is a better thing to do. But even if you feel you can't, you could just go, right, well, I can't forgive them, but I'm making a choice to walk on, you know. Forgiveness
isn't for the perpetrator. You're not condoning their behavior. You're forgiving so that they no longer have control of you and that you can let it go. You can choose to stay in victim mentality and keep saying, why me? Woe me, everyone's against me, the world's against me. Or you can say, what is this teaching me? You know, life happens for you, not to you. And I know that's very hard when you're in the depths of that despair. But you're continuing to hold a grudge against them people is actually them still controlling you. You're still allowing them to abuse you effectively by letting them still have that power over you. And that's it. You can go into that spiral of victimhood, victim mentality, and that's no way to, like, you're not going to escape that. But you have the power inside you. Instead of calling yourself victim, you're a survivor, you're a warrior. You got past this. You escaped that relationship. You escaped that toxicity. So don't let it keep you stuck. You know, you have the power now to move forward. You know, and it is a choice to stay in that darkness, because we actually do have the ability to get out of it. We really do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're living proof that you can get through that and you can change it. And if you're intentional, you can change it. But it's so quickly. It's like there's so much advice out there about things that can support well-being, but people are apprehensive to try it. It's like meditation. You know, if you mention meditation, people roll their eyes and think, you know, and without even trying it, you know, and there's so much evidence, gratitude, so much evidence that's scientifically backed that it can help you.
Yeah, I was actually given a book. I was given a book title by a psychiatrist back, I think it was about 19 or 20, and it was Feel the Fear and Do That. Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Great book.
And it's a really good book, but I didn't read it till I was in my early 30s. I had gone to that book, right? I opened the book when he told me to buy it, and it was like, depression isn't real or something like that, and that you can change depression with power of your mind. I just closed the book. I was like, fuck off. I'm depressed. You can't tell me depression isn't real. And I shut that book and I didn't open it again for another 10 years because I refused to take responsibility for the truth. And then 10 years later, after reading it, I'm into meditation as well. You know, I wouldn't have believed in meditation before that. Like, I used to be on antidepressants. I used to go to group meetings for depression. I used to have therapy, you know, for over 10 years. And, you know, then meditation, I'm finally reading that book. You know what I mean? I actually chose to change my belief that I could change. I changed my choices. I changed my actions. Instead of saying, blaming or, you know, getting angry with the psychiatrist for, you know, picking this book for me, or the writer for writing that, I actually took responsibility and said, right, maybe I'll listen to this. And when I did, my whole life transformed. I don't need therapy anymore, and I don't need antidepressants anymore. The only thing I need is meditation. You know, and that is after curing me. And that book was a fucking lifesaver.
Yeah.
If I had only read it when I was 20, I could save myself a long fucking
years back. But this is the thing, and that's really interesting, because what you will find, and this is why we trigger warning, we've said a trigger warning, is that when we are asked to look at something that we're not ready or prepared to, we get angry and triggered. And then that's a stupid idea, how ridiculous. And we want to pull that apart because we don't want to take responsibility. We don't want, if we feel like we're in a really bad place, we don't want to feel responsible for that. We don't want to feel like we did that to ourselves. And I'm not saying that people haven't done things to us or that situations haven't been difficult, because they have, but you always have a choice in that. People can go through the most terrible things and not end up with depression and anxiety. And people can go through milder things and end up with depression and anxiety. So what is it? Is it the trauma that causes it, or is it you? You know, and it's a difficult thing. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm a person who because of my mindset, because of the language patterns around myself, because of my behaviors, because of my beliefs about myself, I put myself in a bad place, and I was a victim. I blamed everybody else. I blamed my situation. I even and I was not a nice person to myself, you know. And this is to make yourself a safe space to make a mistake and to take responsibility. You have to have compassion and love for yourself.
Yeah.
And often you will meet people who cannot take responsibility. It's always someone else's fault, you know. So we might end up calling them narcissists, or we might end up calling them toxic, or, you know, impossible people. But they do exist. And you know, the truth is they're doing the best they can with the tools they have. You know, for whatever reason, they are not nice to themselves. They are not a safe space to make a mistake, and they are not compassionate to themselves. And so because they cannot stand the fact that they might have made a mistake or that they could be at fault, because they are harsh on themselves, then they cannot take responsibility, and they have to blame someone else. They have to blame the situation. They have to play the victim. So, you know, they're a victim, but they're a victim of themselves.
Exactly. That's it. And that's the thing. I find that with narcissistic people, you know, like for us empaths who have suffered real trauma, you know, we have finally looked at it from the outside. We've taken that bit of responsibility for ourselves, and we've changed our lives, and now we can help others back. But the narcissistic people of this world have very mild things happen to them, and they make it into this big, massive mountain of abuse. And then they get into this victim mode, and they think the whole world owes them something. And then they end up turning into the abuser themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. They end up being the toxic person by literally because they're blamed, they've gone bitter. They've become so bitter with everyone around them because they think everyone should be doing everything for them. And that's it. It's just, oh, it's, hi, Carla. So, yeah, that's the thing. They just, this is it. Like, they literally blame everyone and everything for why their life isn't going right. But we actually do have power to make our lives right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. We just need to look within and understand that we have that, we can flip that switch ourselves. It is not anyone else's fault for us to still be in a dark place.
Yeah.
You know, we might have.
That might look like walking away from someone or a situation. That might be taking responsibility, isn't necessarily sitting and firefighting. Sometimes it's like knowing that this isn't good for you and that there is better out there. It can look like, but it can look like in teams. So in work, sometimes when you might enter a team of people that are working on something, and maybe they've been working on it for a long time, and maybe they're not getting very far with it. And so in a team like that, you might have people going, oh, well, so and so didn't do this, or so and so didn't do that, or it's their fault, or it's that. And what happens is it makes the team completely ineffective because nobody's taking responsibility. Nobody's trying to solve the problem. Everyone's just trying to escape accountability. It's like, oh no, it's not working. It's not my fault. It must be somebody else's. Who can I blame? What can I blame? And you find this in schools, you know, a lot. You get the teachers blaming the parents, the parents blaming the teachers, the child blaming their mate. It's like a pandemic, you know, trying to get children to take responsibility these days is so hard. And it just makes things take so long, you know, because you're having to listen to somebody blame someone else for all the things that they've done, and then you go to that person, then they blame someone else, and you just don't get anywhere. And it's the same in any team or relationship, that like if it's not a safe space to go, I made a mistake, or then nobody will say that. If you don't feel that you can say, I could have done better, then you won't. And so it's so important in any workplace that leadership, it fosters it's okay to make a mistake, just like you would, just like I do with the children in my class. It's a safe space to make a mistake. If it's not a safe space, people will not want to be accountable. If people think that they're going to have, you know, fingers pointed, that their job's at risk, obviously if somebody does something really terrible, you know, but on a day-to-day basis, people often don't want to take responsibility at all. And that's to do with a culture. And it's the same in your family. You know, if in your family everyone's blaming everyone else, is it a safe space to make a mistake? Is there ridicule? Is there mockery? Is there punishment? You know, natural consequences are okay, but is it treated harshly? Is it shaming? And it's the same in a family unit, in a classroom, in a workplace, in a community. If you want people to take responsibility, and if you want to be productive and move forward fast, then it's got to be a safe space to make a mistake and take accountability. Otherwise, people just won't do it, you know?
Okay. 100%. And nothing will ever change. And you're going to just have to set boundaries or walk away. And normally, when you do set boundaries with the wrong person, they will turn around and blame you and say, you're selfish. Say that you're fucking crazy. So yeah, there's an awful lot of that blame game going on when you try to actually assert yourself and to set boundaries, especially for me with family members. I was accused of having a mental disorder. Yeah. And I was like, okay, thanks. You know what I mean? Instead of actually that person taking responsibility, I said I can't be around negative energy. Instead of that person actually saying, okay, I'll own my shit, they accused me of being crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah,
just that, like, I like that relationship I had to walk apart.
You've talked before, isn't it? Like in your experience with your dad, he was openly very aggressive and very sort of like shouting at the TV and all that. That kind of environment isn't a place where you know, if you want to take responsibility. He's clearly not wanting to take responsibility, and that's the problem as well. You can take responsibility. I've been in that situation where I'm like, I'm going to take all the responsibility, and with the wrong person, they'll let you have it.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. They'll use it to beat you with.
Metaphorically
or physically.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, it's a two-way street. There's two sides to every story, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I had some accountability to bring to the table there, but like, you know, if I say that I need to protect my mental health because I can't be around negative behaviour and then get accused of having a mental disorder, you know what I mean? Instead of that person this is my dad again, as we were saying, but I'd like to take accountability for his reasoning. You know, our relationship could have been saved, or I might have had to walk away completely if he'd have owned his part in the scenario.
The ones I like the best are the parents that teach the children to behaviour and then throw the children under the bus, like they don't know why the kids are doing the behaviour they're doing.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, it actually reminds me of certain things when I was growing up as well, like, do you know what I mean? But that's the thing, like, you know, we learn stuff off our parents, and then our parents kind of get angry with us for stuff that we learned off them, and it's just like, you know, oh, I didn't lick it off the fucking grass, like.
Yeah, and sometimes you can see it, actually, you know, like when a child has behaved perhaps aggressively or swearing or whatever, and you've talked to them and they've, you know, you made the child take responsibility and they're very sorry and they've done their time, and you take them out to the parent, and the parent just displays the same behavior as the child in the class, and it's kind of, it's difficult because then you think, well, it's not really the child's fault, but it is still the child's choice, and so, you know, if we blame everyone else and don't allow the child to take responsibility, then they're destined to turn into that, you know.
But that's the thing about children. Like, as children, we don't understand owning our mistakes because we're not taught it from a young age.
Yeah.
And we actually have to learn how not to do it as kids to learn how not to do it as adults. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But we first have to do it wrong as kids before we can do it right as adults, because no one is teaching us. No one really is teaching us that behavior change. We actually have to do it wrong first in order to do it right.
So, but the child doesn't have a different example. It's not gonna do different. Well, you'd like to think they'd have a different example in school, wouldn't you? That's but
that's where we do learn. Like, if we're not being taught the right way as young children, or we're sponges, it is by making that mistake in school or doing the bad behavior in school that we get reprimanded and think, okay, now I'm learning. Because you're not learning.
It's just the norm.
Yeah.
You don't know any better. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. Like, you know, so we can't really blame the kids for doing it wrong. And we all did it wrong. And the only way we learned how to do it right was by doing it wrong. Because we weren't taught.
It's not, once again, it's not about blaming the child. It's just about supporting them in taking responsibility, isn't it? And when we're not playing the blame game, it's not blaming ourselves. It's not blaming ourselves. It's looking at what we've done and how we can do it differently, which is different. Blame, when we talk about blame, it's almost like it's got a negative, like, oh, you know, it's bad. So when we talk, I guess in some ways you could look at it as like, I've got to blame myself because then, but then that feels bad.
I don't like that term. You're reminding me of something there. Like, self-blame is not what we're trying to say here. We're not trying to make you feel bad or guilty for things that happened in your life. We're not saying that you were to blame for the negative things that happened in your life. We're just saying that we can take responsibility for changing our situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, another one is my workplace is toxic.
Oh, I know, yeah.
And so it might be, actually. You might find that there's lots of people that behave in ways that are toxic to your energy, that you don't get along with. But you, in your workplace, I think you often find that people are also contributing to the people that are saying that are often contributing to the toxicity. And it's not, you might not be in a position in your workplace to change the whole thing. It can take systemic change is much more difficult, but within the people in your close proximity, it's going back to, like, how are you showing up? Are you going there and moaning? Are you complaining about things? What's your small talk like? Because that contributes. And I'm not saying that if there is a problem in your workplace, for example, something that you think is unjust or isn't working, then absolutely use the right channels to bring attention to that. But it's a complete waste of energy to go and moan to your coworker about it. All you're doing is making them feel bad and bringing it to their attention, and neither of you are doing anything about it.
And you're energetically enhancing the situation the more you speak about it. So like, that's the thing.
And you'll be looking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even with gossiping and work, you can choose not to sit in that circle. Yeah. You can choose not to listen to that negative energy. You can choose not to work for a narcissistic boss. Mm-hmm. Or you can choose to stand your ground and say no instead of being walked all over. There's all these things that you can choose not to do. If you're complaining about your boss every day, do something to change the situation. Mm-hmm. That's, you have that power.
Yeah, absolutely. You've always got your feet at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're like, that's another thing. We all think we're trapped. That is something that we're all saying. Oh, I'm trapped in this situation. I'm trapped in this relationship. I'm trapped in this family dynamic. No, you are not. Yeah. You're trapped by your mind and your limiting beliefs. That's the only thing you're trapped by. You have the ability to choice. I know it can be difficult for financial reasons, for whatever reasons there are, but there are ways. And even by just changing your mindset and knowing that you have the ability to change and make different choices can actually energetically put things into motion. Like the simple thing, I'm back to saying I'm too busy. You're saying to the universe, I'm so busy, give me more stuff to be busy. And that's it. And if you say, I have loads of time and I'm going to prioritize things that are important to me.
And I turn up an hour early for everything.
Exactly, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like, you mentioned that again because that was brilliant. So twice in a row, like we come on here 15 minutes before to check our connection. And Carol came on and this is 5:45 in the evening. And you came on at 4:45. And I literally was looking at you going, do you know what time it is? And she was like, what? And then the next morning for work as well.
Next morning I was I got ready for work and I got my coat on and I put brews on the table for the kids as I do, and put Ben's medication on the table, and went to go out the door, and I was like, boys, you should be down by now, it's 7:30. And Elliot shouted down, Mom, it's 6:30.
Yeah. And that's all because you changed from saying I'm too busy to saying I have loads of time.
Yeah.
And you ended up having loads of time. It's all about back to priorities again. But if you change your belief system, change your energy around something, then the universe will open up opportunities for you to get out of that situation. So you're not trapped. Your mind keeps you trapped. But once you open your mind and change your mindset, you can change your reality.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing with blame, why do we blame? We blame because it's the path of least resistance. Now, I am a big fan of the path of least resistance when it comes
comfort zone.
Yeah. But that's it. It's easier to stay in a lot of ways. It's easier to stay stuck because because if you stay stuck, you don't have to challenge anything. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to take a risk. You don't have to plan something different. You can just stay stuck. But in the long run, it's a massive cost to stay stuck. You know, it's like 10 years of depression it cost you, didn't it, to not read that book earlier?
I know. I have 2 toxic relationships and an excessive trauma in the middle. Well, 2 excessive traumas in the middle. Do you know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a better person because of what I've been through. But if I could have changed direction when I was 20, and I could have lived a completely different life. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm happy now at where what I've transformed into.
Yeah.
But if I could have saved myself 10 years of deep depression and trauma and toxicity, I could have done that. You know what I mean? We all have that choice to go whatever direction we choose. And I chose that day to close that book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what would have happened if I'd read it? You know, who knows? Like, but you know, we have choices every day, and it's just the comfort zone again. You know, I started a new course, and I just knew it would clash with this. You know, and of course it was the same time as Midweek Mindset, and I was like, oh, I can't do the course now because we moved to Midweek Mindset at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday. And that was my decision. I can't do the course, but I was like, I know this isn't right. I know this is my ego telling me not to do this. And I had a conversation with you. We just changed to Friday. But I'm still having triggers coming up in that course. Going like, oh, all this kind of stuff coming in. It's like, oh, because it's just a different kind of course than I've normally done. And it's just like, all of this kind of energy coming in, trying to keep me stuck in my comfort zone. I keep trying to make excuses as to why I won't pass this course. And I'm just looking at myself going, this is bullshit. This is me just making excuses to go back into lazy mode.
Yeah.
That's what it is.